Good morning, everyone. The November 9th, 2021 virtual meeting of the Anne Arundel County Council is now in session. This morning, we will begin with the annual fall tour with the Maryland Department of Transportation to hear about the Consolidated Transportation Plan in Anne Arundel County. After this, we will take a quick break and switch to a council work session. And at this time, I would like the officials to introduce themselves. I see, actually, I'll introduce some. I see we have the county executive, Mr. Pittman here. I see we have several council members here, Allison Pickard from District 2, Andrew Pruski from District 4, and and Jessica Hare from District 7. And I'm gonna have to navigate on my screen to see who else is here. That appears to be the various, oh wait, hang on a second. Okay, that appears to be the folks from our council. And then we have a number of folks from the state. And if I could ask, actually, I'll go ahead. I'm just gonna introduce folks from the names that I have on the screen, and I will do my best to get the pronunciation correct. And if I could ask folks after I call your name, if you wouldn't mind just sharing what your title is and your role. Let's see, first I have James Ports.
Morning. My role is Executive Director for Maryland Transportation Authority, better known as MDTA.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ports. Then I have Kristin Fidler.
Hi, good morning. Kristin Fidler, Director of Harbor Development with the Maryland Port Administration.
Thank you. And I have Lori Rhodes, and actually I know she's with the administration. And Lori, remind us your title.
Good morning. I'm the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for Land Use.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Holly Arnold.
Hi, good morning. My name is Holly Arnold. I'm the Administrator at the Maryland Transit Administration.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Ricky Smith.
Good morning. I'm Ricky Smith, Executive Director, CEO of the Maryland Aviation Administration, operator of BWI Marshall and Martin State Airports.
Welcome. Next, I have Gregory Slater. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Good morning, Greg Slater still.
Next, I have Daniel Janasek.
Hi, this is Dan Janasek, and don't have a speaking role today. Would like to just remind to let Tim Smith in for speaking purposes, please.
Okay, thank you. And then I see I have another person from admin here. This is Pete Hill.
Well, good morning, everybody. Pete Hill, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Director, Anne Arundel County.
All right, let's see. I have next Melissa Williams.
Good morning, Melissa Williams, Director of Planning and Program Development at MDTA. I'm here in support of Jim Ports. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I have Tim Smith.
Good morning, Tim Smith, MDOT SHA Administrator.
From Anne Arundel County, Ramon Robinson.
Good morning, it's Ramon Robinson with Anne Arundel County Office of Transportation.
All right, and is there anyone else whose name I missed? I'm on multiple screens here, so I do see that Chair Lacy is here. So if I haven't missed anyone else, welcome. Thank you all for joining us, and I will hand over the leadership of this meeting back to our chair. Welcome, Chair Lacy.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rodvian. I'm glad Zoom allowed me to participate today. So let's get right on into our MDOT CTP tour. Everyone, I believe, has been welcomed, and Secretary Slater, you're on my script, is leading this off.
Great. Good morning. Thank you so much. I was fighting with Zoom this morning myself. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I think I saw County Executive Pittman on there, members of the council, Chair Lacy. Thank you for having us here today. For the record, my name is Greg Slater. I'm the Secretary of the Maryland Department of Transportation. Thank you for inviting us to provide an overview of our draft 6-year Consolidated Transportation Program, more commonly known as the CTP. It covers fiscal years 22 to 27. I'm going to reintroduce part of our team that's here with us today, just so everybody kind of knows the flow of things. From State Highway Administration, we have Administrator Tim Smith, and we have our Acting District Engineer, Kim Tran. From the Maryland Transportation Authority, we have Executive Director Jim Ports. From the Maryland Transit Administration, we have the Administrator Holly Arnold. From the Motor Vehicle Administration, we have our Deputy Administrator Lesley. From the Maryland Port Administration, we have our Harbor Development Director, Kristin Fidler. And then from the Aviation Administration, we have Executive Director Ricky Smith. And I also believe we have Paul Shank, which is our Chief of Planning and Engineering. From the Secretary's Office, we have Regional Planner Dan Janasek, and then our State Legislative Officer, Melissa Einhorn. But let me jump right into kind of our program today. 2020 has been a pretty challenging year for all of us, and the pandemic really led to record decreases in travel and a significant corresponding drop in our Transportation Trust Fund. The good news is those trends have recovered in recent months. The even better news is the passage of the new infrastructure bill. But I'm going to start off with a snapshot of our statewide travel and then jump right into those details. Today's travel volumes have reached and in some cases surpassed our pre-pandemic levels. During the peak of the stay-at-home order, traffic volumes dropped by more than 50% on our highway system. And on the second week of October, traffic on Maryland highways was down just 6% compared to that time period in 2019. On the other hand, Maryland's economy is continuing to recover, and the supply chain is trying to meet that growing demand. So we saw statewide truck volumes up more than 15% compared to the same time in the previous year in 2019. At the toll facilities, our transactions for the second week of October were down just 2% compared to those transaction volumes for the same period in 2019. During the peak of the stay-at-home order, our toll road transactions were down 58%. Overall, passenger volumes at the BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport remain about 25% lower than 2019 levels, as business travel still lags behind that leisure travel, but air traffic continues to grow on a weekly basis. And the Port of Baltimore has also seen a robust rebound from the pandemic, reflecting that consumer demand for goods and Maryland's stature as a key hub for that growing e-commerce industry. For more than a year, the Motor Vehicle Administration has operated under an appointment-only model to promote the safety and health of our customers and our team. But during that time, the agency has significantly expanded its online services available through the innovative Customer Connect system. As a result, MVA today is now serving more customers online than ever before and serving more people overall than it did pre-pandemic. Over on the transit network, the Maryland Transit Administration has continued to play a key role in making sure that essential workers can perform their critical duties during the pandemic. Today, ridership on MTA core services remains pretty consistent, and MTA continues to ensure bus and rail services remain safe and reliable. We're getting close to about 60% of our pre-pandemic ridership on our core bus system, while the other modes of light rail and metro and MARC continue in a little bit of a slower pace. But we did recently resume full scheduled service on MARC and commuter bus, as many of our riders are starting to return to the work on site. Shifting over to our CTP, you'll find that our CTP, I'm pleased to announce today that the draft CTP totals approximately $16.4 billion. That's over $1 billion more than the 6-year capital program passed last year, and on par with the $16.4 billion program passed in 2019 and 2024. The final 21 to 26 CTP was about $15.2 billion. The largest driver of this increase was an influx of COVID relief funds of about $841 million and revenue changes of $488 million. The largest components are the motor fuel tax that outperformed our models by about $255 million, and our titling fees that outperformed our models by about $213 million. This CTP heavily focuses on system preservation, delivering major projects and planning and engineering for the future. Just as importantly, this CTP will allow our transportation system to contribute directly to Maryland's economic recovery. More than half of this budget, $8.2 billion, is going directly into system preservation state of good repair. This is funding that's critical for our bridges, our rail assets, our roadways, our port, our airport infrastructure, and the infrastructure that is in need of investment. The draft CTP also allows us to move forward with some major projects across the state: the Howard Street Tunnel, the AB connector at the Baltimore-Washington International Thurgood Marshall Airport, our 695 and I-70 triple bridges, our 695 traffic relief plan, the Purple Line, and the replacement of the American Legion Bridge. We're also investing in the next set of planning and engineering projects to build that shelf of projects that will benefit residents and businesses for future generations. Looking ahead, we believe we've weathered the worst of the COVID revenue impacts and expect most revenues to return to pre-pandemic levels by 2023. Those federal COVID relief dollars are helping us bridge that gap. You know, when we talk about system preservation, the reason for the big focus on system preservation is that we have significant state of good repair needs throughout the state, currently in excess of about $7 billion across all transportation modes. Much of that infrastructure was built decades ago, so we need to repair or replace a lot of those significant assets, bridges, tunnels at the same time. We're facing about $2 billion in state of good repair needs on our transit system, about a $4 billion backlog on our highway network, $750 million at our two main airports, BWI Thurgood Marshall and Martin State, and about $100 million in needs at our MVA locations, and then more than $250 million in needs at the Port of Baltimore to modernize some of our dated assets. And that doesn't include our need to maintain 135 miles of navigable channels at about $100 million annually to ensure that they can support those large Panamax ships. We're also studying two transit corridors in the Baltimore area, an east-west transit route running from Bayview through downtown Baltimore to Greater Ellicott City and Howard County, and a north-south transit route between Towson and Baltimore County and downtown Baltimore. This regional transit plan east-west corridor study is underway and is now looking at different alignments and alternatives as part of the study, including bus rapid transit, metro, subway, and light rail. And finally, we're fulfilling our commitment to the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority by providing $2.7 billion in this CTP. As you can tell, state of good repair investments are a huge priority for us, but that doesn't mean we're not going to focus on other things as well. As we're doing those state of good repair projects, we're going to build intelligence across our assets. We're focused on delivering infrastructure projects that incorporates technology and flexibility and future growth. We're focused on safe and accessible mobility choices for all users, including pedestrians and bicyclists, and considering the relationship between land use and transportation decisions. But our focus is really about a sustainable, customer-focused transportation vision that continues to integrate roadway transit, freight, air, and port infrastructure, because that's going to be the foundation for the budget in years to come. A big part of how we deliver that vision will involve continued investment from our federal partners. We have got a tremendous amount of relief from the relief packages through the CARES package, the CRISA package, and the ARPA package of 2021. We've been closely tracking the actions in DC, right down to that Friday night vote on the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And I'm happy to report that our teams are ready to deploy that additional funding and help strengthen our system across Maryland. The benefits to Maryland in that act will be significant. Over the next 5 fiscal years, we're looking at $4.1 billion for roads and highways, $1.7 billion for transit, $158 million for airports, just to kind of think about a few categories. Now, these figures include some of what was previously in the forecast, but if you look at just the additional funding, we're anticipating those figures to be roughly about $1 billion more for highways and roads, about $200 million more for transit, about $140 million more for aviation, plus a lot of discretionary opportunities on top of that. So I do want to take a moment and sincerely thank the governor for his role in bringing that package together and helping advocate for infrastructure. While the expectation is it's going to take some time to realistically into next year for states to start to receive those dollars, we're moving quickly already. This CTP is allowing us to hear directly from our partners at the local level as we think about where to put those resources. We look forward to using these funds as a force multiplier. Finally, recently, the governor announced about $16.8 million in grants to support bike, pedestrian, and trail improvements throughout 42 projects across the state. Thanks to the Kim Lampier's Bike Network program, the Anne Arundel County Office of Transportation is going to receive $376,000 for the final design of 2 short but critical shared use path gaps between Odenton and Arundel Mills on Blue Water Drive and Milestone Parkway. The city of Annapolis was going to receive $224,000 towards the design and widening of the Poplar Trail, which will connect the southern terminus of the Southward Shore Trail. The Anne Arundel County Department of Recreation and Parks will receive about $1.8 million through the Transportation Alternatives Program to retrofit the outfall and construct a stream valley restoration project at Globe's Branch Perennial Channel in the South River watershed. This project is going to improve water quality, also reduce impacts due to roadway runoff and in-stream velocity. And finally, thanks to the Rec Trails program, the Maryland Port Administration is going to receive more than $83,000 to construct 2,800 feet of new Cox Creek Community Trail in the Cox Creek Forested Conservation Easement area. At this point, I'm going to take a pause and turn it over to Tim Smith at the State Highway Administration to talk a little bit about what's in their program.
Thank you, Secretary. And good morning, County Exec Pittman and County Council members. As the Secretary mentioned, Tim Smith, and it's a pleasure to be here and an honor to kind of lead the SHA team. So last year, our team stayed focused on maintaining and both our construction and our maintenance programs while trying to keep our employees safe and following proper health practices. So what that allowed us to do is continue to deliver some great highway transportation projects, and a few great examples of those right here in Anne Arundel County are in Crofton. Now that was a little bit of a required perseverance, but we completed sidewalk improvements there at the high school as well as the middle school. So that project included sidewalk, ADA compliant ramps, pedestrian signals, retaining walls. That was one of the challenge there, and a lot of relocated utilities. So that project was a $7.2 million project we completed just before school started this August. Near Fort Meade, we're also excited to be reinitiating the Maryland 175 reconstruction project there from Race Road to McCarran Court. So in September, we re-advertised that project. If you remember, we advertised that before, ran into a lot of utility challenges. We addressed those, and that's why we're moving forward right now. But this project includes an interchange with the VW Parkway, as well as pedestrian and bicycle facilities across 175 across the Parkway. So we anticipated this construction to begin in early 2022 and completing it, the $79 million project over the next several years. Further south, I know we did a lot of work there on Maryland 450 where we had some flooding challenges. We made some kind of emergency improvements. I know that's addressed some of the greater challenges, but we still have some more additional work there. So we've been able to advance $450,000 to get that design further along. We're at 30%. We're anticipating getting that done this fall, but that's just, like I said, building on, it's an entire system, drainage system there. So we're building on the emergency improvements we made in the past. In addition, I know we had an opportunity to partner with Anne Arundel County and your Department of Public Works this fall on a litter campaign. That was a great effort. I know County Executive Pittman was there, Senator Vital, and a lot of the great members of both State Highway as well as the county. That was a combined forces to look at not just state roads, not like county roads, we kind of look at them all together. I know that was a very successful event. And I look forward to continued partnering efforts with the county in that type of effort. But as the Secretary mentioned, as our current CTP draws closer to pre-pandemic, and now with the optimism with the federal infrastructure funding, what does that really mean for State Highway in terms of what we will be delivering? And I really feel like we're building our shelf with three main areas. And one is asset management. You heard the Secretary mention it, state of good repair and system preservation. The second one is accessibility. Third is mobility. And let me kind of quickly explain what those mean. So projects with an asset management approach are really geared to providing a kind of a sound transportation infrastructure for the next generation by making really smart decisions now, but using a kind of a long-term mindset. We want to make sure we're setting up our next generation for success when it comes to our infrastructure. Accessibility, that's really about protecting our vulnerable users like pedestrians, bicyclists, those on scooters, as well as our motorists to help them connect to life's opportunities. So when the Secretary sat in my seat a few years ago, we introduced a context-driven guide. And what that really builds is flexibility into our planning and design solutions that can address issues of safety, like I mentioned, for all those vulnerable users. It's a bit of a culture shift for State Highway. We've been mainly focused on motorists, but so this allows us to look at a larger gambit and get more perspectives. But we know improving our procedures through that lens of that context guide, as well as a Vision Zero goal, will make our roadways safer for everyone. And then the last thing I mentioned was mobility. So that's really, the Secretary mentioned as well, it's really about using technology and being able to utilize our existing footprint and using that technology, intelligent transportation systems, whether that's cameras, whether that's queue detection, whether it's speed detection sensors in our roadways, adaptive signals. What we're really trying to do is get folks more efficiently across our existing pavement footprint as safely as we can. And we know we can build that in to maximize the efficiency of our existing infrastructure. So just really in closing, I know it's been challenging times, but the really big part of what the CTP is about is gathering your feedback, gathering your inputs, and working with our stakeholders to understand what your perspectives are, but what your issues are, to help us make the best decisions we can with the dollars available to us. So I thank you for your time, and I'm going to turn it over to our teammate at MDTA, Jim Ports.
Good morning, everyone. For the record, my name is Jim Ports. I'm Executive Director of the MDTA. So this past year, the MDTA made great progress in preserving Maryland's toll facility and developing projects and studies to serve Maryland into the future. The Bay Bridge Automated Lane Closure System, the ALCS, is a project constructed for opening and closing lanes for two-way traffic operations on the bridges. The ALCS will enhance the current manual system for motorists by allowing maintenance crews to remotely implement and discontinue the two-way traffic on the Bay Bridge's eastern and western shore. The ALCS will include overhead lane use control signals, dynamic message signs, horizontal swing gates, and illuminated pavement markers. Work on the project, such as conduit boring and installation, began in February of 2020 on the eastern shore and in January 2021 on the western shore. The ALCS project includes reconstruction and realigning US 50 eastbound in former toll plaza area. And in the fall of 2022, the automated lane closure system will be in place in both directions. So in February, the Tier 1 draft environmental impact statement for ongoing Chesapeake Bay Crossing Study was made available for public review and comment at baycrossingstudy.com. The MDTA held in-person and virtual public hearings in April, and comment period ended in May. We expect to identify a selected corridor alternative and publish a combined environmental impact statement record of decision in the winter of 2021 and 2022. The MDTA implemented temporary all-electronic tolling statewide in March of 2020 as part of its COVID-19 response, and we made all electronic tolling permanent in August of 2020. Construction for highway speed all-electronic tolling on new gantries and removal or partial removal of existing toll plazas is underway at Fort McHenry Tunnel, JFK Memorial Highway, and the Nice Middleton Bridge. A study is also underway for the I-895 Baltimore Harbor Tunnel Plaza and interchange improvements, which will allow MDTA to bring highway speed all-electronic tolling to the Harbor Tunnel. As you know, the MDTA launched Drive Easy MD, the new home for all things tolling in Maryland. The April launch of Drive Easy MD included a new website, web chat, customer call center with expanded hours, text notifications, and more. Customers can now pay their tolls with EasyPass, pay by plate, or video tolling. EasyPass Maryland customers continue to receive the lowest toll rates with savings up to 77%. More features such as additional vehicle classes with lower toll rates and a mobile app are coming soon. Lastly, major ongoing statewide projects also include the $1.1 billion I-95 Express Toll Lanes northbound extension program to relieve congestion and improve travel along I-95 corridor northeast of Baltimore. Construction began in May on the major project to widen northbound I-95 between Maryland 43, which is White Marsh Boulevard, and Maryland 152, which is Mountain Road, to make way for the extension of two northbound express toll lanes. The extension is expected to open to traffic by 2024 to Maryland 152, and the full extension to north of Maryland 24 open to traffic by 2027. With that, I want to thank you, and I will now turn it over to Holly Arnold at the MTA.
Hi, good morning, County Executive Pittman and County Council. Thanks for having us virtually today. So I'm Holly Arnold. I'm the administrator for MTA. MTA is one of the largest multimodal transit systems in the U.S. We operate local and commuter bus network, as well as light rail, metro subway, MARC train service, a comprehensive mobility paratransit system, and we support the locally operated transit systems across the state. Our goal is to provide safe, efficient, and reliable transit service across Maryland with world-class customer service. The COVID-19 health crisis really highlighted the critical role that transit plays in connecting the region's residents to employment, healthcare, and other essential services. And as Secretary Slater said, I'm very happy to report that as of August 30th, all of our modes have resumed full scheduled service. MTA continues to make significant investments in the state of good repair projects across our system to ensure that our system remains a safe and reliable transportation option for the region. Federal relief funding from the CARES Act, CRISA, and ARPA have filled operating funding gaps and allowed us to advance state of good repair needs. Some of these key state of good repair investments include $400 million to replace the metro subway rail cars and signal system, $160 million to overhaul major systems on our light rail trains to ensure reliable service, $54 million to overhaul 63 of our MARC 3 passenger coaches, $210 million for a 5-year contract for our buses, $238 million dedicated to rehabbing and renewing our metro system, and $264 million for our light rail system. And we're going to continue to prioritize state of good repair projects across all of our modes, with a particular focus on our older assets. That said, we're also preparing for the future of transit. Recently, we published the agency's first strategic plan for the next 5 years. It's titled Rebuilding Better, Committed to an Equitable Transit Future. And it's going to guide our recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic and identifies priorities for us to create a brighter future for transit by focusing on technology, communication, and collaboration with equity as that central focus. These commitments really build upon the strong foundation and progress that MTA has established to improve the transit experience and system reliability for our riders, including continued recognition as the safest transit system in the U.S. for the last 7 years, implementation of our Charm Pass mobile ticketing app, improving bus reliability with dedicated bus lanes, and expansion of real-time information to our MARC train and commuter bus systems. The full plan is available on the MTA website for review. We're also investing in facilities. So our $65 million MARC Riverside Heavy Maintenance Facility is currently under construction in Baltimore. And when finished, this state-of-the-art facility will enable us to enhance our locomotive and railcar maintenance capabilities and will help support major transit infrastructure improvements along the entire Northeast corridor. And in May of last year, we announced as part of the regional transit plan implementation, the launch of 2 feasibility studies for 2 corridors. These corridors are areas that show strong demand for transit and are opportunities to explore new transportation modes, schedules, routes, and infrastructure. We're currently studying 2 corridors, a north-south corridor between Towson and downtown Baltimore, and an east-west corridor between the Bayview community and Ellicott City. And investments in these corridors will improve the entire system. So we look forward to continuing our implementation efforts and working with Anne Arundel County to move forward on the 30 strategies identified in the 5-year RTP action plan, of which 20 are underway this year. To learn more and view the project dashboard, I encourage everyone to visit rtp.mta.maryland.gov. MTA is also undertaking our first 50-year statewide transit plan. The draft plan is expected to be available for public comment by the end of this year. It builds upon existing regional and local transit plans across the state and outlines a 50-year vision for transit in Maryland to help define transit needs across the state for our future generations. We look forward to working with Anne Arundel County and stakeholders from across the state to develop this long-term vision and framework for coordinated transit service in Maryland. As ridership continues to grow and travel patterns change, MTA remains consistent in our unwavering commitment to our riders. As part of this commitment, the CTP dedicates $43 million to transit network improvements to improve the customer experience. These funds include improvements for new dedicated bus lanes, bus stops and transit hubs, including ADA improvements, wayfinding, and bike and shared mobility. These investments demonstrate MTA's priority to accelerate rider-focused initiatives and projects that provide meaningful benefits to the communities we serve. We're also committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and we're aggressively transitioning towards a zero-emission bus fleet, investing over $260 million for our zero-emission vehicles program, bus pilots, and bus procurement. MDTA also makes a significant investment in transit in Anne Arundel County by providing $2 million in operating capital grants for this fiscal year to support the local transit operation in the county. And in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Anne Arundel County will receive $9 million in federal funds to support transit operations and capital needs for the county. Thanks for your time. I'm now going to turn it over to Lesley Dews at the MDA.
Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Lesley Dews, Deputy Administrator over at MDA. At MDA, we continue to focus on providing premier customer service, both in and outside of our branch offices. We remain appointment only, allowing us to service customers more efficiently. Most branches have actually returned to pre-pandemic levels of service or are exceeding monthly transactions in previous years. Online and kiosk services also remain a vital part of providing products to Marylanders statewide. Over the last 18 months, limited operations in our branch offices have really given us the opportunity to examine how we do business and to update our processes to be more convenient for our customers. Some of the new changes include renewing a license up to 12 months in advance, requiring a new photo every 16 years, and extending the vision certification from 1 year to 2, allowing more customers to renew online. MBA offers more transactions online than ever before, and our customers are taking advantage of those services. From March through August of this year, MBA saw a 45% increase in online transactions compared to the same period in 2019. Those services will only be enhanced with the final rollout of our IT modernization project known as Customer Connect in December. Phase 1 was completed in July of 2020 and focused on vehicle services. Phase 2 will include driver services, driver enforcement, investigations, and financial services. At full deployment, Customer Connect will consolidate our existing IT systems into a single portal, giving us a complete view of the customer and real-time updates, which will decrease delays for our customers. For our customers, this means greater access to their information online and a more secure product with the implementation of the MDID, which is a randomly generated number that will protect customers' personal information. For our CDL drivers, expiration dates on all CDL products will now be changing from 5 years to 8, the same as a non-commercial license. We're still moving forward with Real ID and ensuring that every Marylander is prepared for the new deadline of May 3rd, 2023. Currently, we are 84% compliant with Real ID, which is one of the highest compliance rates in the nation. MBA and its partners also remain committed to providing solutions to save lives on our roadways. Last year, the state had the highest number of roadway fatalities since 2008, and this was despite traffic volume being down as much as 50% at the height of the pandemic. We continue to see an increase in dangerous driving behavior, even as traffic volumes return to pre-pandemic levels. In September, Governor Hogan announced more than $100,000 for Anne Arundel County agencies to address highway safety. And MBA's Highway Safety Office continues to push its overarching safety campaign called Be the Driver, which focuses on driver responsibility behind the wheel. MBA strives to be the best in the nation at everything we do. I'm proud of our employees for doing an outstanding job in delivering on our customer service promise and continue to think of ways to improve our services and to better serve Marylanders. Thank you, and I will now turn it over to Kristin Fidler at Maryland Port Administration.
Great, good morning. Thank you so much. Hello again, I'm Kristin Fidler. I serve as the Director of the Office of Harbor Development for the Maryland Port Administration. And I want to talk a little bit just about the COVID rebound at the Port of Baltimore. So the Port of Baltimore's state-owned public marine terminals really have bounced back strong since those early months of COVID-19, which impacted the entire international maritime industry. All of the port's key cargo commodities, cars, containers, farm and construction machinery, paper, and general cargo are up significantly since that time. We have seen double and even triple digit increases in our cargoes. Some categories are even beating pre-pandemic numbers. Turning to cruise, which is also an accommodation at the Port of Baltimore, We have been working since March of 2021 when cruising came to a screeching halt, working closely with the CDC and the cruise lines on restart protocols. Carnival started cruising from Baltimore on September 12th, and Royal Caribbean is scheduled to restart from Baltimore on December 23rd. Other investments that we're making at the Port of Baltimore, we continue to do so to make sure we can remain as one of the busiest ports in the nation. We have more than $250 million in the pipeline to modernize and upgrade our infrastructure. That figure does not even include our need to maintain over 130 miles of navigable channels at $100 million each year to ensure that they can support those larger post-Panamax vessels. Speaking of upgrades to our infrastructure and those larger ships, dredging was completed in April of 2021 on a second 50-foot deep container berth for Seagirt Marine Terminal. This deeper berth will allow the port to accommodate 2 ultra-large ships simultaneously. $10.5 million is budgeted in the CTP from the state for that project. 4 supersized Neo-Panamax cranes arrived in Baltimore in September, and the berth will become fully operational during the first quarter of 2022. Those huge new cranes are undergoing their thorough testing and operator training as we speak. Turning to the Howard Street Tunnel, we continue to work closely with the Federal Railroad Administration, which recently announced approval of the Finding of No Significant Impact, or the FONSI, document for the planned expansion of the Howard Street Tunnel in Baltimore. This project will reconstruct the CSX-owned 126-year-old tunnel to allow for double-stacked intermodal container trains to and from the Port of Baltimore. This project will generate 6,550 construction jobs, while an additional 7,300 jobs would be created because of the increased business. This project in the current CTP includes $202.5 million in state funding. Following final CSX engineering and permitting, construction on the project is expected to begin later this year, so imminently since we're already into November. Dundalk berth reconstruction. MDPA is also reconstructing berth 3 at the Dundalk Marine Terminal. This will also better accommodate larger and heavier pieces of farm and construction machinery. That's the cargo that comes in and out of that terminal. $28.7 million is allocated in the CTP for this project. And I would certainly be remiss if I didn't talk about dredging and dredge material management. And I just want to give a shout out to Chris Phipps with the Arundel County DPW and his team there for being such a great partner, working with us on the expansion of the Cox Creek Dredge Material Containment Facility, and to our citizens who represent the neighboring communities and serve on the Citizen Oversight Committee. They well know that we are expanding our Cox Creek Dredge Material Containment Site as we speak. We're vertically and laterally expanding it. And that is so that we can hold additional dredge sediment from the channels leading to the Port of Baltimore and ensure that we have a long-term plan for capacity. Again, as they well know, continuous dredging is necessary to accommodate the supersized ships of today that head to our port. And for that entire program, you would see $57 million budgeted in the CTP. And just a point of local pride, some local companies that use the port, again, just recognizing that the Port of Baltimore is Maryland's port. It's not just Baltimore's port. So right here in Anne Arundel County, companies like Bitumar USA, US Gypsum, and Baltimore Scrap all ship their products through the Port of Baltimore. With that, I thank you for your attention and your continued support, and I'm happy to turn the microphone over to my colleague, Mr. Ricky Smith at Maryland Aviation Administration.
Thank you very much, Kristin. Good morning, everyone. For the record, I'm Ricky Smith, Executive Director of the Maryland Aviation Administration. Throughout the pandemic, we've collaborated with state, federal leaders, public health officials, and our partners to ensure safe, healthy airports for our customers and employees at BWI Marshall and Martin State Airports. Our airport communities remain focused on providing healthy and safe travel. The strong recovery that we have experienced reflects the confidence that our customers feel with the safe, comfortable travel services they receive. In fact, the recovery at BWI Marshall Airport leads the region with growing passenger traffic and new airline service. I am particularly proud of the work from our employees during the pandemic and the fact that BWI Marshall was named the top North American airport in its size category for the 2020 Airport Service Quality Awards. The ASQ program recognizes global airports for delivery of the best customer service as measured by passengers. To receive this honor during the pandemic, the most challenging time in our history, was a remarkable achievement. Throughout the pandemic, we continued to innovate and provide new services and amenities for our passengers. Like, for example, the $48 million 5-gate extension to Concourse A that offers new food and retail concessions, upgraded restrooms, and more capacity for Southwest Airlines. And our new state-of-the-art electric vehicle charging stations, which are an important collaboration with BGE to boost charging infrastructure in our region. Moving forward, our capital program remains focused on improving facilities and services for our customers while creating opportunities for domestic and international air service. System preservation and resiliency are major focal points for MAA's capital program. Driven by the need to provide exceptional service to our customers in the safest, most reliable, and efficient manner, system preservation projects include an airport-wide restroom renovation program, aviation fuel storage replacement and expansion, electrical feeder replacements, airfield lighting, vault upgrades, and passenger boarding bridge replacements. Additionally, as a designated general aviation reliever to BWI Marshall, improving the facilities at Martin State Airport remains a key component to maintaining an efficient regional aviation system that balances the needs of commercial, corporate, personal, emergency response, and military aircraft operations. After a short pause due to the pandemic, we're moving forward with a major multi-year terminal improvement to the center of operations for Southwest Airlines, the largest airline partner at BWI Marshall. The Concourse AB Connector and Baggage Handling System project will transform a major portion of the airport, creating an enhanced travel experience for passengers and supporting future growth. The improvements will include direct concourse to concourse connectivity for passengers, new food and retail concessions, modern restrooms, and expanded airline hold rooms, all sitting atop a new state-of-the-art baggage handling system. This large-scale project will be largely funded by airport revenue bonds, which we issued for the first time ever this past summer. The bond issuance was well received by rating agencies and investors alike. We also are moving forward on major site preparation and utility work that will support construction of a major aircraft maintenance facility for Southwest Airlines, the first such maintenance facility in the Northeast for the air carrier. MAA will continue to support aviation and airports across Maryland by working with our 35 public use airports in the state. For the statewide aviation grants program that provides important state funding and support for airport improvement projects throughout the state, MAA intends to administer $1.6 million in grants during fiscal year 2022 for regional airports across Maryland. I want to thank Secretary Slater for his continued commitment to regional aviation support across the state. Tipton Airport in Oakton, for example, will receive $67,900 in state aviation grant assistance for replacement of the airfield fence in state fiscal year 2022. As the global aviation industry continues to recover and rebound, across MAA, we are working to provide excellent service for our customers. We remain committed to excellent service and convenience for our customers at both BWI Marshall, and Martin State Airport. With that, let me turn it back over to Secretary Slater.
Thank you, Ricky, and really thank you to the whole team for the great presentations, and thank you for having us to share our draft CTP. Before turning things over to County Executive Pittman, I did want to take a moment and highlight a portion of our program, which was a great state and county partnership that has enabled the advancement of 3 critical roadway corridors in the county. This is a partnership that was just taking shape when I departed State Highway to take over as the MDOT Secretary. And I'm excited to have kind of tracked the team's progress to today. But this past June, the county and the state signed an MOU outlining the state's commitment about $1.4 million, which along with the county's commitment about $1.1 million, to advance the design of improvements on northbound Route 2 from Route 50 to Arnold Road, on Maryland 3 from Wall Chapel, Rydell Road to Maryland 32, I-97, and Maryland 214 from Maryland 648 to the Summit School entrance. But I'm also excited to see Maryland 2 and Maryland 3 corridors advance from our statewide systems approach. There we are addressing more than one of our congested mobility corridors throughout the state with our transportation systems management and operations solutions. These Tismo solutions focus on maximizing the potential of existing facilities, often with technology and the use of our transportation network and an interconnected network. But these efforts are a great example of how we all can get more done together through an effective state and local government partnership. So I did want to call that out. And I look forward to working more with the team to advance design and move these projects forward. So with that, I'll turn it back over to County Executive Pittman. But myself as well as my team are here to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Well, thank you, Secretary Slater, and thank you, all of your team, for that great presentation. It's good to hear not just what's going on in our county, but the big picture around the state and the great work that you're doing. And I do have to say that when you came in to take the reins of the department, it was a real breath of fresh air to have somebody who'd worked their way up from within the department, knew transportation, knew our roads, knew the projects, knew where they stood. And so rather than just talking about what we couldn't do because there was no money in the gas tax and all the funds that we all depended on for roads, we actually talked about what we could do. And so I want to start with what you just said about Route 2, Route 3, and Central Avenue, that partnership. And it's something that I guess I and at least 4 of our council members, the majority, really went out on a limb in our first budget, and we said, we're never going to get these state roads, these major traffic blockages in our county addressed if we don't do something to move our way up the list of priorities for the state of Maryland. And the only thing we could think of was putting money on the table, was creating some room in our capital budget so that we could put these projects in with a carrot, with some county money to bring the state on board. And we did that through the Permanent Public Improvements Fund. Our residents are paying for that with 0.1% of their income on their income tax. And I believe that what we're announcing today with this partnership is a demonstration that that's actually working. So what we're really looking at is the planning phase of it. And I do have to show at least the image. We don't have a slide for this. I'm going to do some slides, but this document here is the Tismo study that you were referencing, the transportation systems management and operations, which really means nothing to anybody. But if you open it up, it means a lot. It actually shows the intersections that are failing, and it proposes solutions for each of those locations. A lot of it is additional lanes. Some of it is pedestrian and bike crossings, and it's really exciting stuff. So we're gonna get into a little bit of that. But the fact that we're splitting pretty close to evenly the planning phase of this suggests to me that we will be splitting the cost of the construction as well, fingers crossed. And I'm really proud of the partnership and everything that our team did to get us to that point, and everything your team did to get us to that point. So I want to go through some of these slides and go through not only where we stand on those three, Route 3, Route 2, and Central Avenue, but some of the other priority projects that we have. And I also want to just say that in this economic moment that we find ourselves in the country, the state, and the county, that the labor market is tight for small businesses. Jobs are needed and jobs exist, but if we don't have transportation to get people to and from jobs, then those jobs aren't of much value to the people or the businesses. So I think if there was ever a moment where $1 trillion of federal money was very, very welcome, It's now. I'm thrilled that it looks like the state of Maryland is going to be getting significant money there. I mean, I've seen numbers of 4.1 billion for roads for the state, $500 million for bridges, not including what we can actually compete for, and then 1.7 billion for transit. So by having the projects in our capital budget already, and then I should say also by having a Move Anne Arundel plan that our Office of Transportation did that lays out our priorities, it puts us ahead of the game when we're competing for federal money, because some of this money we will have to compete for, and we will have to show that we have planned appropriately. So we're in a great place in Anne Arundel. We've passed Plan 2040, which is our general development plan, and it focuses on transit-oriented development, and it really does set up a system. It's much more community-driven than it used to be, with small area regional plans that are going to be undertaken, but it focuses on transportation networks in all of our development planning. So now is the time. We're so lucky that we have a department in the state of Maryland that is really working with us, a governor that understands these issues as well, that's working with us, and a federal government that is putting some money out there. So let's jump to the next slide. Basic vision of Move Anne Arundel is provide safe, efficient, equitable, and sustainable multimodal mobility that provides residents, travelers, and visitors with connectivity and choice. And I have to say, on the sustainable part of that is climate resilience, and the fact that Maryland is one of 2 counties in the state of Maryland that is creating a resilience authority also will put us in a place where we will be at the front of the line for the federal funds, and maybe some state funds for that as well. So here's the exciting thing that I was jumping up and down in the hallways of the office when I saw this. Normally, when this is the scoring for this CTP that the state does of projects based on scoring and ranking based on whatever criteria you use. And I don't profess to understand your criteria, but what I like about it is that of the top 10 scoring transportation projects in the state of Maryland, 6 of them are Anne Arundel County projects, which is unheard of. The first one is an MDOT, the 270 project, which we can understand why that gets a perfect score. But we are 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And then we also jump down and we're 9th. And then we have a few others in the top 20. And the only reason I believe that this is the case, the reason we moved up, is because we're putting county money into them. So we jump to the next slide. The Route 3 project, this is just the beginning of this is just a map so people can see. But basically, we're talking about an area where the development has been far more than what the roads could handle. The traffic bottlenecks are terrible there. People are so frustrated in the communities that they're really practically saying, no more development until you fix this. I talked about the possibility of a moratorium at last year's CTP. The law office says that's not going to work. So instead, we're really got to fast track the work on this corridor to move the traffic forward. The Route 2 is the next slide, and we have failing intersections there too. We're talking Ritchie Highway north of Route 50, that part of Route 2, and it also includes safe crossings to get people to the trails that are there, crossing with bikes and walking, and so. Both of those are in this Tismo study. We will be meeting with the stakeholders in the community as we plan with the state to actually undertake the construction there. But if you look, we've got 15.8, almost $16 million of county money for Route 2. We have 21 million for Route 3. And then the next slide is Central Avenue, where we have close to 16 million. Wrong slide. Let's see. Oh yeah, Central Avenue, where we have 14 million. And then the same Central Avenue project is one where, like many peninsulas in Anne Arundel County, there's one road in and there's one road out, and it's a public safety issue when the road gets closed. When we had our recent storms and tidal flooding out on the peninsula, a tree went down, and we, in that case, were lucky that Public Works was able to get it out of there within about an hour, but it literally threatens lives when that road gets closed. So this is one of the locations where we have backups at Lock Haven, and we want to stress that we want to expedite this by any means possible. So those are the three that we have this partnership for. And I couldn't help but put the, I won't read all the whereases and the now therefores and all of that, but I can tell you that this agreement between the state and the county, the whereases are mostly about the fact that there's actually an investment of county funds. And then there are, there are 3 project task agreements, one for each of those corridors that's attached to this. It was thrilling to get this signed back in June, and it's thrilling to hear that finally the CTP, once it's approved, as long as it's approved as you just announced, that we will have funding for the planning for all 3 of those in the CTP. So huge progress. Can't wait to see the final draft of the document in January. So if we jump down, this is the rest of the list. I won't go through everything here, but we do not want to lose sight of some of these other projects. And this is not even a complete list of everything that was in our CTP letter. We will continue always, like every other county, to come at you with our list of priorities. And if you jump to the next slide, we'll start with just local transit. And I was thrilled to hear that we actually do have or at least there's an estimate of $9 million of the federal money that we can use for local transit. We've got a couple of projects coming up, but there's no question in our minds that Anne Arundel County has fallen behind on transit. We do have some train stations. Odenton is the most popular of them for commuters, and we need to increase ridership, and we need to increase our buses as well to get people to and from these locations. So next slide. As part of that, the Parole Transportation Center is one that it's going to be a nice place where you can get warm. You can maybe even get a bite to eat right there in the northwest corner of the Annapolis Mall. And it will be a place where a lot of our bus lines go. You've heard about federal funding for electrification of transit, and we will be applying for funding for electric buses. And we hope that electric buses will be more appealing to the riders and that we'll get more people on those buses. But we think that this transportation center right in the middle of the county is going to enhance the experience for people. So we put $14 million into the budget for that. And we're thrilled that you have put it as your, I believe, number 3 statewide priority. Next slide is Maryland 450, and you mentioned this. This is the flooding that has been taking place there and the need to really eventually raise the road, we believe. But I do want to thank you because I have to be honest, that when you said that you were going to do some intermediary measures to get the water to flow through those culverts, we didn't believe it was going to work. But we went from 60 road closures at that site in the year before the work was done to 2 road closures in the year after that work was done. So on behalf of all the residents who use that road, thank you. And I was glad to hear that you're continuing to do the planning for a permanent fix. Next slide. Maryland 170, another partnership that we're doing together. We're putting in $5 million. And again, that's why we are the next one down on the list. I think we're number 4 in the state of Maryland for this project. So we will keep that moving. It's an area that's been growing population and jobs near Fort Meade. So thank you. Next slide. Arundel Boulevard is another location where the traffic bottlenecks, anybody who lives on the Annapolis Peninsula knows that, especially during rush hour. And so we're in the planning stages with you to address that. And we have to make that happen. That's in addition to 2 and 3. I think it's probably, and 175, it's probably one of the worst in terms of failing roads in terms of traffic. So let's jump to away from traffic and look at bike and pedestrian in particular. Thank you for your partnership on 175. Sidewalks, I think, are probably one of the things we hear most about when we do our budget town halls. We've talked about it also, in our planning documents and Move Anne Arundel. And we've really felt it when the school buses don't show up to pick up the kids, and the kids end up walking, some kids, to school, and there are no sidewalks. So it's a huge safety issue. And we have lots of sidewalks in our capital plans, and we appreciate your support when they're state roads. But our bicycle networks and our trails. A lot of that is grant funded, and we appreciate that. A lot of it's federal funding, and we have a network, which I believe is the next slide. No, it's the one after that. Yeah, there we go. Okay, it is both slides. So this is the trail network that we're seeking to complete, particularly in the northern part of the county. You know, we have a wonderful B&A trail, and during COVID, people were, it was pretty, we almost had traffic problems there as bad as some of our roads, which is a good thing. The South Shore Trail is the one where we have the most work to do, and that will connect job centers to the west in Odenton and the train station with Annapolis. And so we are investing. We've got 1.3 million in our budget for that, and thank you so much for your help on that. We'll continue to work with our bicycle advocates, our bike commission in Anne Arundel County. They've put this map together. This is one of the most community-driven efforts that I've ever seen anywhere. The activism of our bike advocates to get these trails done, and they will hold our feet to the fire, and then we will hold yours where we can. So thank you for that. And then the next slide is another project. This project, anybody who lives in Odenton knows that it's been a long time coming, and it's been frustrating in trying to create what we call the Odenton Town Center with sidewalks that actually go somewhere, and the kinds of businesses that encourage people to go out from where they live, work, and play in one area. And part of the problem was that we always said that there was going to be structured parking there, so that Busy Mark station people will be able to get from their car to the train quickly. And I'm really thrilled that we now have an agreement with the state. I believe we'll be breaking ground. I was trying to get a date for that. Nobody knows for sure, but I think within the next year. Particularly thanks to Medco for partnering on that. And we're doing it, we're able to move forward quickly because it's an area where we have TIF, tax increment financing funds, and they have grown as a result of some of the development there, and we're using those funds to finance this garage. So next slide. And then transit-oriented development in general. We partnered with the Greater Washington Partnership, who did a study recently for us, and I think that's where some of these images come from. In addition to BWI obviously being transit area, the Cromwell station, which is the end of the light rail coming from Baltimore, Laurel Racetrack has a station that doesn't get used much, that there's a plan to grow, and the rebuild of the Laurel Racetrack is going to allow some development there and on the 198 corridor, so that will be transit oriented as well. And then of course Odenton and the work that's going on there. And I want to add on Odenton that in addition to that structured parking, we put into our capital budget this year a park. And it's the kind of park where people can go with a stroller or go with a dog or go just to get outside. And it's close to the library, close to the train station. And it's really going to, I believe, make Odenton an amazing place to live and amazing place to walk around as well. We do want to get the state to designate these sites as transit-oriented development sites, and we want to continue to work with you to get some of the good mixed-use development that we think belongs there. Next slide. And then I think this is it. For the MARC train in particular, it really does connect folks both all the way into DC and Baltimore, and so enhancements to the line. As well as high speed. Actually, that I think is the next slide. I've lost track of them, but some higher speed transit express trains that go through for the Penn line are going to be critical to our county as well. So I think that's not everything. I didn't even cover the Bay Bridge. I'll mention that, Jim. Ports, we've been working together, and we're really thrilled that we do have the automatic lane closure system underway. We think that's going to be great. The all-electric tolling was long time coming, but has helped as well. And I think we're all on the same page. I've talked to the governor about this, that at least for us, talking about what might happen there as a replacement bridge and having as many lanes on the bridge as there are lanes on the road so that traffic can actually flow is where we're all trying to get. And I know there's a lot of work and there's a lot of expense in the future there. But also thank you for putting as your number 10 project that corridor with those enhancements. So When I came into office, I knew that traffic was going to be the most challenging thing to deal with. It's the thing that people complain the most about. And I really, to be honest, I wasn't sure that we could make much progress. And I feel very different about that today. I feel that we have all of these projects underway, and I look forward to seeing the final CTP budget with all of them in it. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. It's great to see you really dig into the details on some of those issues, because we've been kind of living and breathing them for a few years. And I love seeing the local energy behind the TOD program. We've been trying to kind of get that energy across the state, and it's really, really great to see. But we are happy to continue to partner with you and make progress. I think the one point I'll make is people maybe don't understand how critical those early planning investments are, because when those opportunities like an infrastructure bill come up, they want to know what projects are shovel ready. They don't want to make an investment that's going to take 10 years to get out on the street. So when they start to see projects that are active in that early development and know that we can get them out on the street relatively quickly, it's about partnering to create that opportunity when those issues and those opportunities arise. So thank you so much. Maybe turn and see if the council had any questions or any other further questions for us.
Secretary Slater, would you like to call on people with questions, or would you like me to do that?
Let me see. I'm going to switch my grid look here so I can see who I am seeing. I'm happy to call on them. I'm going to go. By the way, the grid is formed on my screen, so forgive me if I don't call on you at the time you kind of called up. But let me start with Andrew Pruski from District 4.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. And I want to thank the County Executive and Secretary Slater for this presentation. I represent Fort Meade, and certainly it's the largest employer in the state of Maryland. It's exciting to hear the news that you shared today along with the County Executive, because I think the citizens in the area kind of felt forgotten for a while. So certainly the priorities shared today are exciting. But one thing I do want to highlight is public engagement. I often find that people get frustrated with roads and traffic. I'm not talking agencies, people, but I would like to know if there's a way that we could find a better way to include people. And I don't know if it's town halls or surveys, whatever it might be. And I find that simple solutions sometimes can be done. Just to give you one quick example, a left turn signal at a light could make people extremely happy. And it's a smaller project that you don't have to go through a lot of hoops and things like that. So that's number one. And then the second thing is the federal funds. People get concerned because we've had projects that have been added in their priority, and then a new administration or somebody else comes in and they change it. So how do you recommend a citizen advocate, right, in the proper way? I mean, certainly the legislatures, the governor, we want to be respectful of everyone, and people get frustrated. There's a lot of processes. And of course, this was educational today, but really getting back to that public engagement piece, and then how do we do those small things? And thank you again for presenting. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Let me first touch on kind of the public engagement piece, because I think there are a number of opportunities, but I'd love to have our teams collaborate on that, because a lot of times someone in your seat may have a stronger connection to a local community or a homeowners association than our team may not have. And if you can help us get some of that word out, I think it's a strong relationship between our district office and a lot of the council offices and the county executive's office on how we can kind of disseminate information out there. But I think the greatest way I've found to advocate. So just in full disclosure, I've been in this department for 25 years. I've worked for 6 of the 15 secretaries that were before me, and I've served 4 or 5 different governors now. And I've never seen an administration come in and not look at that priority letter. Those priority letters are critically important. And so that's just the way our teams are wired. So that's what's going to be your constant between administrations and the ebbs and flows, is focus on that priority letter and get your communities engaged in that process as you're developing those priorities. We look at 2 different things, or really 3 different things, when we look to where to put our resources. 1, that priority letter. Where are the local priorities for investment? 2, what does the data tell us? Where are we having the highest level of safety issues? Where do we have the greatest structural needs? Where do we have the greatest congestion or opportunity, those types of things. And then 3, we look at where we can stretch every dollar as far as we possibly can. And I think that's where I'll point back to the partnership that we have with Arundel County, where, you know, a project moves up on that list when we can share those costs and get more value for every part of our dollars.
Thank you.
I'm switching now to Jessica Hare, District 7.
Thank you, Mr. Slater. Jessica Hare, District 7. I have a thank you and a question. So first, on the thank you side, the sidewalk project in Crofton. I have had an enormous number of questions from constituents, and you all have been very gracious and super helpful in kind of getting back everything from delays because of utility relocations and all sorts of things. So I very much appreciate that kind of constant communication from the state. On the question side of things, so part of my district includes the Mayo Peninsula, and I agree with the county executive's comments about the safety concerns there. We really share that concern along those roadways, and we've talked about this for a number of years now and how to fix that. And I know the residents there are super concerned. And I heard you say some funding and some matching funds, but I did not catch quite the amount. And I was wondering if you had that amount there so that I could jot it down and make sure that the residents know that this partnership is continuing.
Let me lean, I don't have my note in front of me, but maybe Tim Smith may have that if he's on there. Let's see, but we can certainly follow up with you on that.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, let me switch over to Amanda Fidler from District 5.
Thank you, Secretary Slater. Amanda Fidler, District 5. I really appreciate your presentation today, and I'm delighted to see the Bay Bridge in the top 10 list, being the councilwoman who represents the western shore of the Bay Bridge, as you know. I do want to take a brief second to thank Mr. Ports, who is here. He came out to the Broadneck Peninsula, gave a very extensive and detailed presentation, answered some very tough questions. And I just want to take a moment again to thank him, but also thank you for increasing transparency and communication between jurisdictions in the state. And just as a note here, not really a question per se, it was a long time and what felt like a Herculean effort to get multiple jurisdictions on the same page. As you know, there was a joint resolution by Queen Anne's County and Anne Arundel County. Kent County has also signed on, and I believe 2 other jurisdictions are also working on similar resolutions supporting a full replacement. In a perfect world, and I said this when testifying on the resolutions, we would have 2 new bridges, a full replacement and then a 3rd span somewhere else. But my main goal is to get traffic moving for the residents of the Broadneck Peninsula, freeing up our roads that are just red all over the place. When you look at the maps, folks on the peninsula who live on like Maryland 179, they're right on a really tight local road. They can't even get out of their driveways for extensive periods of time. So again, just thank you. I hope the state recognizes the joint effort, and I hope to hear some good news in the future.
We absolutely do. I can tell you that Executive Director Jim Ports put a lot of personal sweat into trying to kind of build some consensus there and working in the community. But I also will share something that many of you don't realize as well is every time he does that, or the MDTA team does that, he comes back and shares that discussion, not only with me, but with also Tim Smith, because the reality is that whole system works as a system between really 97 and 50 all the way across the bridge to that 301 and 50 split and across Kent Island. And it involves multiple jurisdictions and multiple state agencies. So rest assured, even when you're just communicating with the MDTA, Jim and that team will come back and follow up and talk to us about how we can work together on the solution. So it's a continual collaboration, but thank you for working with us on that. It's a real challenge.
Hey, Greg, if you don't mind,
Sure.
I'd just like to say a couple things.
Sure.
First, I want to thank County Executive Pittman for recognizing the teamwork and the cooperation between us. But I really want to give a good shout out to Councilwoman Amanda Fidler. You know, we had several conversations by phone, community meetings, and she's really dug in hard on this issue. She's been an advocate, obviously, for her constituents, which is, our role is, her role as elected official, our role for constituent services. As you know, Governor Hogan is very big on customer experience. And so we appreciate working with you all and coming together. You're right. Queen Anne's County also approved, Kent County, you guys. And I think all of us coming together, working together is what's going to help all of our constituents at the very end. So thank you for your leadership and the numerous phone calls. and feel free to continue to contact me.
Thanks, Jim. Before I switch over, I did see Allison Picard from District 2 had a question, but it looked like your hand went down. I want to make sure we got your question addressed.
Oh, thank you, Secretary Slater. I just wanted to echo everyone's thank yous, I guess, on the presentation. This is a timely event this morning with the infrastructure bill passing, and I've just had this thought about, they say luck is when opportunity meets preparation. And I'm thrilled to see that our county has done the work and has done the preparation to meet this opportunity to serve our communities. I think one of my constituent issues in the Severn area is Maryland 170. I think we're number 4 on the list. So no matter what happens with the CTP, it looks like Anne Arundel County is in pretty good shape to get some state funding and hopefully obviously federal funding as well to take care of these many, many issues that face our constituents every day. As county council representatives, we hear so much from constituents, and it all sounds, those small intersections all add up, right? So your daily frustrations in traffic. But we have some projects, and your team and other team members from the different agencies have been very supportive, and I can't do my job and serve my constituents without the help of my legislative aide, Kristin, who works very closely together with me to tackle these issues. So your team has been very responsive. We do have some issues that we're looking to get some movement on, but I'll take those offline.
Sure.
So thank you again.
Thank you so much. Let me switch over to Sarah Lacy from District 1.
Thank you very much, Secretary Slater. I wanted to look specifically at the list in Appendix A of the CTP. It's the list of the priority projects that were shown in the county executive slides. Mm-hmm. And there are 2 projects that I want to point out, just a piece that seems to be missing from the conversation currently, but I hope that we could add it to the conversation going forward with the influx of infrastructure funds that we're getting, which is when you look at Maryland Route 175 going west of 295, which goes through Jessup. And as you know, Jessup is in both Howard and Anne Arundel counties. 175 is a major east-west route to get to Route 1. And we've got the Maryland, the food distribution center, all those warehouses, all of that truck traffic. And a lot of trucks from there go east on 175 through the Anne Arundel County side of Jessup to go north on 295. They can't go south on 295 from there, but they send a lot of the traffic over, and that whole stretch is just a 2-lane road. And what I was looking at on this Appendix A is the first project, actually, it says it's listed as a Howard County project, which makes sense. Maryland 175 improvements from US 1 to Dorsey Run Road, which is on the Howard County side. And then a little bit further down, is the 175 project that goes over to 295. In the middle is a space that's not being addressed in this list, but there is a bridge that's a very critical 2-lane bridge that is just concrete. I swear it feels like it might fall down anytime you're driving over it. And if you're westbound on a day when we've gotten one of these super heavy rains, the entire westbound lane is flooded and the bridge is effectively a 1-lane bridge. That's just something where I hope we can connect the dots, because without addressing that bridge and that section of 175, the residents and businesses are not going to see nearly as much relief as they need.
Absolutely. Let me first say, rest assured on our bridges, because we have one of the best bridge programs in the nation, and we have a lot of eyes on a lot of bridges, so you should never feel one is unsafe for the other, because we're on top of that pretty quickly. The one thing to remember with that list is, so essentially we take a menu of projects and then we rank those based on certain criteria. But if a project is not on the menu, it doesn't get ranked. And so, you get a project on the menu by identifying the problem and then working together to get a project on the menu. So, I think that's a conversation that we can start today and say, hey, this is a problem that may not be on our radar, but is on your radar. Let's look at it together and see kind of where it fits in the project listing, and see if it warrants kind of throwing another piece on the menu or extending what we have there to kind of address those types of issues too. The bridge is probably a critical point there. As we go out there and address that bridge, as that structural need will come up, it gives us the opportunity to address other issues as well, in terms of capacity or the need for sidewalks or something along that line. So we're happy to take a look at that with you and kind of see what the data says and see why we cut it off where we did, and when that would be in the queue kind of process.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Great. It looks like Vice Chair Robian has a question.
Thank you very much. I actually wanted to give my privilege of speaking in this meeting over to a member of the Anne Arundel County Bicycle Commission who's here, John Corin. And if he can sign in. Oh, there he is.
John is always welcome. He's an old friend.
I feel like I've been promoted to District 8. Thank you, Lisa. And I hope first names are okay. Yeah, I come to this from the standpoint of trying to shift mode away from single occupancy vehicles to bike and pedestrians. And our Move Anne Arundel plan very much is modeled on the state's strategic transportation plan, which embraces multimodal. And we have seen a palpable shift in intensity towards those goals ever since you became secretary. So we are grateful for that. And we are grateful for the engagement we have with staff at MDTA, at SHA, at MHSO over in NBA, and so forth. So thank you for that. Two that I'll call out, increasing the funding on the bikeways program, which you did without a legislative action, which was great, and supporting the vulnerable road user bill, which is now, as of October 1st, is Maryland law. And we appreciate you getting behind that.
Great.
Two places where I think we can do better collectively, state and county, you probably already know what I'm going to say, is grant execution. Anne Arundel has done exceptionally well, arguably best in the state, at securing transportation alternatives program grants, especially for trail building. But execution has not been very good. Behind me is the Switchback Trail extension, WB&A, to the banks of the Patuxent River. That grant award came 4 years ago. Finally, invitation for bid is just open right now. In fact, it closes next week. 4 years too long. 3 years ago, we got a Safe Routes to School grant. We just are on the brink of releasing the RFP. So together, we need to do better on grant execution so that we can realize the public benefit sooner, and more importantly, be better positioned to get more of all of this federal infrastructure money that's going to be coming. I've had very good engagement with Scott Pimento, Matt Baker, Candice Holford, and SHA about how we can do those improvements. And I look forward to continuing that work so we can get these done quicker. The other one I would point out is crossings.
Mm-hmm.
Bridge crossings, crossings of interstates, crossings of state roads. Those are thoroughfares for vehicles, and they're walls for people on foot and bike. And so anytime we have an opportunity for a safe crossing, and I'll include the new Chesapeake Bay Bridge, which, like every other major bridge in the United States, Tappan Zee replacement, Pensacola Bay Bridge, Woodrow Wilson Bridge, almost every major bridge except for the Nice Bridge should have a separated bike ped facility when it is designed and built. We would like to see MDTA take on a routine accommodation policy the way all of the other MDOT agencies have with their complete streets. We're not looking for bike lanes through tunnels, but crossings, whether bridge or over MDTA roadways, we think is really important. And that includes Route 3. Important way to resolve traffic on Route 3 is to give people a safe way to get a half a mile from where they live to Chapel Shopping Center without being forced to get into their car for that short trip, but there just are no safe crossings. So better grant execution and improved crossings are the two that I'll leave you with. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. I will say that the grant execution issue has been a real challenge for us for probably 10 or 15 years. And, it might be, worth a discussion with more of a collaborative group and bringing in like a group like MACO. It's not just an issue in Anne Arundel County, it's an issue everywhere. And so from a historical perspective, when you look at a program like TAP, so we get as a state anywhere from 10 to 12 to $14 million a year for bike and pedestrian projects. That could be stormwater projects, that could be archaeological projects, those types of things. But the state is not an eligible recipient of those. So state highway can't use those dollars. MDTA, so we have to rely on the local government to get those grant dollars and deliver those infrastructure projects. But at times, a local government presence in trying to deliver a project under those kind of more rigorous federal processes is a challenge. So we've tried a couple of things over the years. For instance, one of the things we tried was we procured a bunch of contracts and then said, okay, local government, you can use our contracts, which are set up with our consultants that are used to using the federal processes, those types of things. But I'd love to have a really in-depth discussion, even beyond Anne Arundel County, but bringing in a group like MACO to figure out how we can better execute those projects between the state and local partnerships, because the federal processes are the federal processes. There's not much we're going to be able to kind of do about them. But I also think that the federal government is in a position that they don't want to make it more rigorous for us to deliver those. So, it might be worth a dialogue, and I'd love to have you involved in that dialogue, John.
Thank you. I would welcome that. I think there's some process improvement and some resource application that could go a long way. Thank you.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on the separated bike lane on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge replacement?
I try really hard not to get away from to get too deep into NEPA or get ahead of NEPA, but I think we, as we get into that kind of phase 2 of NEPA, that tier 2, and get into more detailed footprint of what the system looks like. I do, the Anne Arundel County side is a little bit different on the infrastructure than the Ken Island side, but there is significant bike infrastructure on the Ken Island side, directly near the bridge, and they've made a lot of advancements with the Cross Island Trail, and they've done a lot of work there. We had a very similar conversation on Thomas Johnson Bridge down by Pax River, where that NEPA approval does include a separated bike lane that connects into the 3-notch trail that kind of feeds into that system. But certainly, we're always open to conversation.
Yep, our Broadneck Trail goes right to Sandy Point Park, so we are right there.
So Secretary Slater, if you don't mind me jumping in, there's a couple questions that were asked that I got answers to now. So let me work backwards. Back to John and his point. We internally thought about a lot of different processes, but I'm with the Secretary. I think we need to partner with all stakeholders to make sure we're gaining all perspectives there on, and we don't want to move forward with an improvement that might make our lives easier but make someone else's lives more difficult. So I think it's about the collaboration and the partnership there. I'd be happy to kind of help facilitate that moving forward. I think Councilmember Lesley asked about Maryland 175. That structure is sound. It's not necessarily as wide as we need it to be through there. And I use that commute home frequently, and I am aware of that drainage issue. So I'm on that. We're going to fix that problem. And then Councilmember Hare asked about Maryland 214 at Mayo. So I had the overall dollar, but I didn't have the individual for each location. So it's $2.4 million for the whole effort, but it's $800,000 for design on Maryland 214 to get us through 100% design. So we're currently collaborating with the county on what that scope fully means, but we can give those details once we've kind of framed out that scope a little more. So I just wanted to touch base on those 3 items.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I am trying to scan my board here, but it doesn't look like we have any more questions. So just from a final kind of remarks perspective, I just want to say thank you for having us here today. Thank you for taking the time to kind of collaborate with us and discuss things with us. And most importantly, thank you for the partnership, because that's how we're going to really be able to move things forward. And it's really great to have Anne Arundel County as a partner as we're trying to tackle these issues together.
Thank you, Secretary Slater. I want to thank all of our team on our side too, Public Works and Office of Transportation, and Lori Rose, our land use deputy CAO, and everybody on our team for everything that they're doing, working with your team. Good stuff.
Great. Thanks all. Be well and enjoy this weather while it's here.
Thank you. You too. I'm sure the County Council is happy to host this session virtually, so everyone didn't have to come to chambers. We're now going to take a 5-minute break so our behind the scenes folks can switch everybody over in and out of the meeting. We'll come back at 10:35, 10:36 and begin our work session. Thank you. Madam Secretary, let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready anytime you are, Madam Chair.
All right. We will now begin our work session. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Pickard. Pickard's not here yet. Mr. Volke.
Present.
Mr. Pruski.
Here.
Ms. Fidler.
Present.
Ms. Rodvian.
Present.
Ms. Hare.
Present.
Ms. Lacy.
Present.
Okay, one more try, Ms. Pickard. Okay, Ms. Schuett.
Present.
Ms. Bolayer.
Present.
Madam Chair, we have 6 council members present. Ms. Pickard should be joining us any moment. We also have our legislative council and our county auditor in attendance.
Thank you. And Madam Secretary, so we don't forget, please go ahead and read the Open Meetings Act statement.
The county attorney has asked me to read the following statement. The Maryland Open Meetings Act is a state law that requires public meetings to be open to the public and to be held in places reasonably accessible to individuals who would like to attend these meetings. Steps have been taken today to ensure that this virtual meeting includes alternate accessibility features that the Open Meetings Act Compliance Board and the courts have reviewed and approved, such as
having a call-in phone number that allows anyone with a telephone to call and listen to the meeting, broadcasting the meeting with video and audio on cable TV and the web, and allowing the public to register ahead of time to watch the meeting via Zoom. The public access provided by this technology makes this virtual meeting reasonably accessible to the public as required by the Open Meetings Act.
Thank you very much. First, just a note that bill number 8821 is still on our agenda for next meeting. That is because even though it's going to be taken off, we can't do that during a work session. So we're going to go into directly into bill number 8921, which is an administration bill. Mr. Barron.
Good morning, Chair, members of the County Council. Pete Barron with the administration. Joining me for this, Mr. Taru, Ms. Penley from Health, Mr. Kai Ziegler and Ms. Miller from OPZ, and I believe we have Ms. Lori Blair Klausmeyer today from the Office of Law. 8921 is an appropriations bill making appropriations from unanticipated grant fund and general fund revenue. The bulk of the appropriations are directed at the Department of Health to support their important work combating COVID as well as substance abuse. The folks here are happy to go into any details or answer any questions the council may have. At the appropriate time, we will be asking you to pass this bill, please. Thank you.
Are there any questions or discussion on bill number 8921? Apparently nothing is coming to mind. Thank you all to the panel. And we'll go ahead to bill number 9021. Also, Mr. Barron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pete Barron again from Central Services. I have Ms. Noonan. From DPW, I have Ms. Henry. From Personnel, I have Ms. Atkinson and Ms. Collins and Ms. Blair Klausmeyer from the Office of Law. 9021 modifies the minimum qualifications and adds positions in the classified service. It modifies certain positions in DPW and Central Services specifically that were approved in the FY22 budget. Again, the team here is happy to answer any questions you have, and we will be asking you to move the bill at the next meeting.
Any questions, discussion? You can raise your hand or just call out Madam Chair. Okay, doesn't seem anybody has any questions right now on that one, Mr. Barron. We'll roll ahead to bill number 9121. Mr. Barron.
That's great. This one, 9121, is a property disposition bill. I have Mr. Sheknovich from our schools and Ms. Niederer from law. Specifically, this is disposing of the property known as Bragers Road in Odenton. We are giving it to the Board of Education. The word disposing is interesting to use here, but it's what is in the code. So the property is 1127 Bragers Road. This council approved the purchase of the property back in March of 2020. And Mr. Sheknovich from schools is here to help answer any questions. But this is an important step forward in this part of the county to tackle our school construction needs. And again, we'll ask you to pass the bill at the appropriate time.
Mr. Sheknovich, did you want to add anything?
Alex Sheknovich, Chief Operating Officer for Arnold County Public Schools. No, Madam Chair, other than expressing my thanks for the county being terrific partners in terms of not only acquiring the land at the initial outset, but for continuing to work with the school district in the development of the property. Recreation and Parks and Public Works have been working hand in hand with the school district to make sure that the project can come to fruition from the construction side, and the Office of Budget has partnered with us in terms of the financing platform for the project. And with that, Madam Chair, I will conclude my remarks.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none. Thank you all. We'll move on to bill number 9221, which is Ms. Fidler's bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amanda Fidler, District 5. So this bill came out of significant interest from District 5 constituents on how the ARP money specifically is being appropriated into different pots, both county and other pots to go out to businesses, et cetera. Up until 2008, my understanding is that any grant funding, even as small as $5, would have to come before the county council, and that created a large amount of legislation and time for both the council and the administration. So our code was changed in such a way that certain grants, if they met conditions, could be approved without coming to the council. I don't think that council, that administration ever anticipated that jurisdictions would be seeing millions of dollars in grant funds from federal government or any other agencies. So just adding or adjusting our code so that we as a council have a little more oversight. I know that we do get a report monthly from the administration on where ARP dollars are going. We also do get a letter from the administration whenever there is spending of $500,000 or more allocated with the grant money. But there is interest in 5th District, I think in other districts, to have more of an open discussion in front of the public and have an opportunity to vote on certain appropriations if it is at the will of the council. I understand that there are concerns about the potential for a large increase in legislation coming before the council. Certainly willing to work on this and get it into a place where we have more input as a council body, but not really strap us to going over in our legislative meetings and delaying other important legislation. So I look forward to the discussion today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Barron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joining me for this one is Mr. Trumbauer, our budget officer, Mr. Taru from budget, Ms. McQuaid from finance, Mr. Beard from finance, and Ms. Blair Klausmeyer from law. One thing I'll add to the councilwoman's comments is not only does the council get a report, that report is published online and anybody can look at it. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Trumbauer for some comments, and I already see some hands in the air. So, Mr. Trumbauer.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Trumbauer, Budget Officer. I'd like to thank the sponsor. We had a good, I guess, virtual meeting last week about this bill. The administration does have some concerns, mostly about the mechanics of how this would work. We have our friends from finance here if you want to learn more about that. But we would encourage the council, if it wants to legislate more transparency or accountability, you can codify the practices that we're already doing with ARP. But our chief concern is if any grant movement of a fund with 300,000 or more, requires explicit council approval, that is going to generate a lot more legislation that will have to be heard. It slows down the process. And as I explained in our internal meeting last week, there's already built-in delays for getting the ARP money out. We're working very diligently to try and address those. We've been working with procurement. We've been working with Office of Law, but we've approved a number of important priority initiatives that are still not getting in the hands of the programs that they're intended for, just because the county process is built in such a way. So this would add another time lag to that already. And I think we share the interest with everybody in trying to deploy the ARP funds where they can do the most good as quickly as possible. So if there's specific questions, Steve and I would be happy to address them, but that's our overall feeling on the current state of the legislation.
Ms. Pickard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank the many, many, many people that met with my colleague and I about some current concerns that I had. It prompted me to reach out to Ms. Fidler regarding sort of some alternative ideas about how to engage the council in further discussion. We do have a couple amendments drawn up. I'm not 100% sure that I'm 100% behind the amendments that I worked with Mr. Swain and others to craft, but I'm still chewing on all of it. I do have some concerns, and I wanted to know from maybe Ms. McQuaid. I've been, poring over the reports. They're very detailed, and there are monies that the administration has approved that are still, not in the hands of those we intended. And I was just wondering if somebody could help take some of that conversation that we had internally and share it with the entire council about some of the issues, whether it's Mr. Beard or Ms. McQuaid. I'm not really sure who the best person is, but there are a lot of, nothing is as simple as we all want it to be, right? So I'm just wondering if we could talk through a little bit of the issues we talked about in the meeting last week.
Michael Beard, Finance Office. I'll just start with some of those. If you did look at the reports that we've been sending, you see a lot of approved projects, but as the Councilwoman just said, you don't see a lot of spending so far. One of the things that not just this administration, but every county administration is wrestling with right now is a lot of unclear guidance from the U.S. Treasury, and it promised that they're going to clarify a lot of things. There's also a lot of a big push to put a lot of legalese, I'll just call it that, and maybe let Ms. Blair correct me later, into the agreements to reflect all the requirements of the ARP Act itself. This has led to a big slowdown in getting the money out because we can't just use a standard contract. We've got to rather stop and frequently amend a contract or maybe get another contract to start spending the money. It's also led to a slowdown in getting sub-grants out, in some cases to very meaningful things like food relief, because we've had to pause and figure out legally how do we write the agreements. It led the administration to bring on an outside accounting firm with expertise in this area who has been advising us, and led to a fairly lengthy process to take a proposal, take it to that outside accounting firm, get them to review it, make sure the proposal itself complied with the various provisions of ARP. And then if so, it goes before a committee. Mr. Trumbauer can certainly comment on this, for a vote, for consideration and a vote. That takes some time. And then should it be approved, and in many cases, the consultant says, hey, this isn't good to approve, we need to go back and look at it again. But should it be approved then by the committee, it goes to our law office, who then has been struggling to get the legal wording into the related sub-grants and sub-agreements. So this has become very lengthy. There are concerns that getting a stop for appropriation consent from the council would even make it even longer, which was already spoken to. And I'm sure I haven't done complete justice in explaining all that. I don't know if my friends in the budget office want to elaborate anymore, but I just want to emphasize, yes, it's very long getting the money out. Thank you.
Any other responses on that question?
Madam Chair.
Ms. Fidler, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to refer to some of the notes that I took to give my colleagues an idea of, outside of COVID, the impacts of the bill. And I certainly, like I said in the beginning, I'm very open to working on this, to getting it in the right place. But, and I might have flipped the years here, but there were 7 of 52 grants in 2020 were not COVID related that would be impacted by this bill. And I believe it was 2019 that there were 15, obviously non-COVID related. Did I get the years and numbers right?
Seeing from budget office, yeah, I think that was right, Ms. Fidler.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, if I may continue. Okay. I do see Mr. Swain here, but I don't see him up. When we had our meeting last week, there was some discussion on an amendment that would introduce kind of the process that we do for the self-insurance fund, where if you reach a certain threshold, a resolution comes to the county council. If we so choose to, could you go into that, Mr. Swain, so that we can have a discussion on that option?
Sure. What we had talked about was a procedure similar to the self-insurance fund approval. And as you will recall, the way that works is a resolution comes to the council, and under the code, if the council does not hear the resolution within a certain period of time, it is deemed approved. So the kind of translating that into this procedure would provide a mechanism for every one of these, subject to the dollar limit, to come to council, and then the council to have an opportunity to decide whether they wanted to have a hearing on it or not. And if they decided not to have a hearing, then no further action would be needed. The resolution would be approved, and it could proceed. If it was an item where the council wanted to have a hearing, they could schedule a hearing on it and hear it as with any other resolution. I think what we've been talking about, a couple elements of it are the appropriate time frames. With the self-insurance fund, it's a fairly short time frame. I think it's 5 days. We have talked about different time frames, but I guess the point is it would give the council the opportunity to have a hearing on any one of these that it wished to have a hearing on, but it wouldn't require every resolution to actually go to a hearing, because if there were ones that there wasn't a hearing requested, it would be deemed approved once the appropriate time period passed.
Ms. Pickard?
I'm rusty on my Zoom techniques. Thank you, Mr. Swain, for that. That's an amendment that I have worked on and has been drafted with $1 million threshold currently. Probably need some more eyes on the timing to make sure the one goal with just the council business is if the administration, if we were to approve this kind of concept, making sure that if there was a public hearing that was requested on any specific expenditure, that we were able to time it with a regularly scheduled meeting, so that we weren't pulling the council and others into additional meetings and bumping up against both everyone's schedules, but also legislative days and things like that. There's pros and cons, obviously. I still have some reservations about that concept, I'll be honest. I feel full disclosure this is what work sessions are for, but I'm happy to share that amendment. I've also drafted a bill that does what Mr. Trumbauer said and codifies the reporting that's already happening, which is just I don't know why anybody would vote against that. We'll just, hold the administration accountable to what they're already doing and what they did during CARES Act. This money does have a longer runway, but at the same time, with all the challenges we're hearing about in administering these funds and getting them where they need to go, I am concerned about a legislative process bogging that down and making it harder than it already is. So I still have some reservations, but I'm happy to share the amendments that have been drafted before the public hearing, which I guess is next week. Just another way to look at council involvement in these distribution or prioritizing these funds.
Ms. Fidler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amanda Fidler, District 5. Mr. Swain, I know that I went back and forth with you over email on the process because we have not really seen a whole lot of SIF resolutions in our time here on the council. Could you remind me and my colleagues here that process? Does it take 4 members of the council to request the public hearing? I know obviously we need 4 members to be able to vote, but what is that process behind the scenes to actually get it on the agenda and have a public hearing?
Great, Swain County Attorney. That is generally the process. It's with the, actually you just saw an SIF resolution come through, and that was not, it was not a decision to have a hearing on that, and it was deemed approved basically by inaction. So it's, the normal process would be that if a resolution comes to the council, then 4 members could decide to have a hearing on that resolution. Now, any member could also put a resolution on the agenda, and alternately 4 members could vote to amend the agenda and take the resolution off. So I think generally speaking, the thought is it's probably going to take 4 members to request a hearing on a resolution. And again, there were some different concerns with the SIF process versus this process, because one of the things that I think one of the overriding concerns is the speed of getting these through. So trying to pick the appropriate hold time, if you will, I think is important, because we've talked about having it linked to the next council meeting, which would mean any resolution would have to sit at least until the next council meeting, whether it was going to be heard or not, or having a shorter process where it could be deemed approved unless there's action by council to actually put it on the agenda and have it heard at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you all. I'm gonna jump out of order here to accommodate Ms. Rodvian's schedule. Let's make sure we can talk about her bill, bill number 9521. Ms. Rodvian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you accommodating my schedule today. So 9521 is a rather unique bill, and it addresses a lesser known environmental disaster in the making. There's a 2017 report that basically talked about bird populations in North America. It focused on North America, and it determined that the number of birds in North America had declined by about 30% since 1970. So if you kind of imagine this on a graph, that's a very rapid decline, considering the amount of time birds have spent as part of the animal kingdom on this planet. To have that dramatic of a loss in, let's see, that's about, 50 years, is alarming and should be alarming. There are several different ways that we are losing birds in our environments, but one of the ways that scientists who study birds have identified is collisions with buildings. And I bet everyone here has experienced it. If you've been sitting by a window looking at a nice, lovely day, and then a bird flies into the window, and you are wondering whether the bird is going to make it. And oftentimes they don't. Let me pull up my notes here because I can give you a little bit more information. It is estimated that about as many as 1 billion birds die every year from window strikes with buildings, and as many as 500 million more per year are injured. From the perspective of architects, there are some changes that can be made in building design and construction that can dramatically reduce, almost eliminate this issue. And if those changes are made at the design phase, they can be zero cost. It's a matter of using different types of glass. It's a matter of using glass in different ways. Putting things on glass, putting designs on glass that break up the perception for the bird that they have a open space to fly through. So these design changes, again, if they're made by the architect, they really can be done for no cost. And even if a project is further along and a builder decides that they want to meet this requirement, and by changing the type of glass, so the only, imagine that the design is complete and the only thing that would need to be changed is the type of glass. The type of glasses that can be used to dramatically reduce bird strikes, and probably the most common solution is fritted glass, and it's basically a glass that will have you've probably seen it. It'll have something that almost looks like little glazed circles. It has a similar appearance, and they can be different sizes. But changing to that type of glass ultimately ends up in a less than 1% cost increase for an entire project, even if that's changed after the design phase. So, you know, again, this is not a well-known environmental crisis, but it is an environmental crisis. Birds play such an important role in our ecosystem. You've probably learned already about the diminishing number of pollinators because of the dramatically reducing number of bees in our environment. The same is true of birds. Birds are also important pollinators. Birds play an important role for farmers in that they can actually respond really quickly to pests that can cause heavy crop damage. They help disperse seeds. They participate in scavenging, which is important. And, you know, larger birds can serve as a food source for humans. So there's lots of reasons that we should be concerned about birds. They also tend to be a sort of a red flag species with respect to greater environmental concerns. So those are all the reasons we should protect birds, and sort of a little bit about the practical steps in going forward with it. But another solution, or another reason that this is a great bill that really doesn't have anything to do with birds directly, but building design that accommodates birds actually is much more energy efficient than design that does not accommodate birds. So using the type of glass that is less likely to make a bird believe that they have an open space to fly through reduces energy costs. So that's a significant reason. By reducing the amount of window space in general, you can reduce heating costs. Now that we have LED lighting that can be used widely, the sort of decades older concern about having lots of natural lighting is not as important as it was in terms of energy savings as it was considered several decades ago, when we didn't have lots of LED options, which are very, very energy efficient. So I really hope that you'll support this bill. It's good for the environment. It's good for birds. It's not, it can be a zero cost change for builders, and it adds energy savings at the same time. So I hope you will support this bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
Ms. Bradvian, I think you should have had like this in the school auditorium. The whole school, probably all the students would be cheering and clapping, doing something for an environmental crisis that costs very little. Okay, Mr. Barron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pete Barron with the administration. Joining me from IMP is Mr. McCara, and from Law, Ms. Kenny. So want to thank the sponsor. I think you shared a draft of the bill back over the summer. Some comments went back and forth. This is really a policy choice for this council. The administration has brought forward a couple of tweaks and changes that the sponsor was able to incorporate that allows us to be able to enforce, IMP would be able to enforce the rules if this council so chose. I did just see some concerns around the cost. I haven't had a chance to look at them from some stakeholders. Would love to hear more from the sponsor about that. But from a policy point of view, the administration has no issue with this bill. And from an enforcement perspective, we have no issue being able to put this bill into place. And our experts here from IMP and Law would be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Ms. Fidler? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Rodman?
Madam Chair, if I could just add one final point, the standard that I have proposed in this bill has actually been adopted by the federal government through the General Services Administration. So this is a thing that is starting to take hold. There are similar laws that have gone into effect in other parts of the country. So this is, while we are on the cutting edge, we have the opportunity to be on the cutting edge. We are not on the very front of the cutting edge.
Leading edge, so to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amanda Fidler, District 5. Since this bill, the way that it's written says non-residential, so just for clarification's sake, would this also apply to construction of schools, fire stations, libraries, etc.?
I did not draft the bill that way, but if others were interested in including that, I would certainly be open to an amendment to add those, but I did not include those. I feel like, a phased-in approach was perhaps the best way to go. And the impact from bird collisions is most dramatic in sort of mid-rise buildings. So in the 3 to 4 story, 3 to 5 story is where you often have the most bird collisions.
Madam Chair, may I just follow up?
Yes, and then Ms. Pickard.
Okay, so just for clarification, the way the bill is drafted is specifically focused on commercial development only.
Anything that's non-residential.
Thank you.
Ms. Pickard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if I may, I'm confused a little bit after Ms. Fiedler's question. So if it's all non-residential, then doesn't that capture county construction of schools? And
we can confirm with the Office of Law, but I believe the answer is no.
Oh, I just, in doing my homework over the weekend regarding this issue, I noticed that the state legislature has one of their a bill in this topic regarded state-funded construction got short-shifted in the early adjournment. So it was focused on state construction projects, not commercial projects. And then in learning about and educating myself a little more closely on LEED certification, as this is a pilot number 55 certification, when we look to encourage LEED certification buildings, whether they're gold, silver, platinum, the project has a menu they can choose from to get to the different scoring mechanism to put them in those categories. And I'm just curious about, there are these other ways to address this issue in a variety of ways. This bill is mandating specific ways for construction to take place. And then also in the county code currently, we tend to use property tax credits and incentives regarding construction of this kind in LEED certified environmentally high performance building. We tend to use incentives rather than mandating specifics. So I'm just curious if there was a thought in designing and crafting the bill of going a different way with incentives versus mandates.
So let me respond to the LEED 55 pilot first. This is actually based on the work that was done in that, but it is not exactly the same. It is more closely akin to the standards that the General Services Administration adopted. There are a lot of things in common however, so that is an appropriate place to look, but it is not exactly the same. I encourage folks to look at the American Bird Conservancy website that really provides all of the different options that are available in terms of how to make changes to construction to be bird friendly. And then let's see, the other question was with respect to, I'm sorry, can you refresh my memory? What was, oh, incentives, using an incentive-based approach. I didn't want to take an incentive-based approach because, you know, that in a way it shifts the tax burden to all the other taxpayers in the county. And, you know, I feel like if you're benefiting from the commercial building, then, you know, the responsibility for you know, following county laws and protecting our environment and our environmental resources, it's fair to fall on that party.
Mr. Barron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quick question from Ms. Fidler on whether or not it would affect county buildings and schools and fire stations and whatnot. I've been having a little bit of a sidebar with Office of Law. I think there's probably some nuance to this. So if we can, I'm going to ask Ms. Kenny, if we're not have this fully fleshed out, we can get back to the council before the hearing on Monday to get a firmer footing on that question.
Sure. Kelly Kenny, Supervising County Attorney. Yes, I will get back to you. 17 and 18, if it's owned and developed by the board, but I want to make sure what the standard is with regard to Article 15.
Ms. Schuett, did you have a question on this?
Yes, I just wanted to respond a little bit more to what Ms. Pickard asked, and that includes the idea that this idea started with a bill in Howard County, which does in fact refer to LEED. When you go anywhere and try to find the LEED requirements relating to birds, you can't. I mean, eventually we found them, but it was very, very difficult. And then when you read them, they're also very complicated. They're not easy to understand for anybody who's not an architect or an engineer, I guess. So it was, this going to the threat factor is much easier. It's all, yikes. It's all
oh, sorry, that's, let me mute.
What? Anyway, the threat factors can be satisfied in numerous ways, and there are loads of different, as Ms. Rodbian already said, there are loads of different types of glass and other things that you can do to meet this. Thank you.
Ms. Fidler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amanda Fidler, District 5. So I have two questions. First, how would this apply to a town center that has commercial, like I'm thinking of Annapolis Town Center, commercial on the bottom, residential on top. Obviously the residential on top would I believe under this bill, if there were another project like that, the residential on top would be exempted because it's residential. So I want to ask some clarification on that. And then second, for the sponsor, I appreciate the data on bird injuries or deaths. Do you have any specific information on the amount of bird deaths or injuries in Anne Arundel County?
I do not. And I will tell you that the research on that is, you know, it's obviously very difficult to count an exact number because, you know, there's no reporting system. People, even if there were, people don't know to report. So it's done in a what do you call it? Like sort of a sampling method, and then extrapolating to, you know, larger spaces. But I can send you what I do have, and I believe it was done by one of the leading ornithology programs in the United States. And so I can share that with you and my other colleagues. And then I'm sorry, refresh my memory on the other question you had. That was only part, oh, the multi-use, like I need to turn that over to, that's another one maybe we should add to the Office of Law. The intent would have been not to, but we can make sure that that is also, if Ms. Kenny, you'd be willing to look at that too.
Advising County Attorney, if I'm wrong, but I believe that the International Building Code would apply to buildings that are multi-use buildings, what regard component or not.
Okay, so if that's a tweak one of my colleagues would be interested in, I'm happy to, you know, discuss that.
Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, thank you everybody for your accommodation of going out of order, and we'll return back to where we left off. Bill number 9321, which is my bill that will add a limited exception in the adequate school facilities law that would cover three small areas in the county to allow residential development where the development will not include any units of 2 bedrooms or more, and they're specifically within 1 mile of either the BWI Amtrak station, the Savage Mark station, or the Laurel Racetrack Mark station, with the idea that these are all areas that we already designated in the GDP as being critical economic development policy areas. They also have a transit-oriented overlay development policy area on them. So we would, we know there's demand for housing that would be within walking or biking distance and with a safe path to be able to get to the station. And so I've tried to craft this bill to fit in that particular kind of the center of a bullseye. We've got overlapping policy areas in different parts of our maps, but this specific one is this specific set of circumstances can only possibly apply in these 3 spots on the county, all of which are virtually on the county's border with Howard County. So I'm happy to take any questions, and also I suppose Mr. Barron, you'd like to have a chance to speak.
Appreciate it, Madam Chair. Pete Barron with the administration. Glad to see her back. We had to lose her for a minute, but Ms. Rhodes is back with us, so all the tough questions can come her way. We have Mr. Kai Ziegler and Ms. Miller from OPZ, Mr. Badami from IMP, Ms. Kelly from the Office of Law. The administration has been looking at this bill closely. In fact, Madam Chair, I sent you an email this morning. We're looking at ways. Well, let me first back up and say the administration appreciates the intent. I think you saw in the presentation earlier, the county executive, this administration is working hard to incentivize the kind of smart growth that this bill attempts to get at by making some important investments and partnerships with our state folks. We are looking at how we can do this kind of work. I think you heard us talk at the table at the last meeting on a bill number is always confusing, but I believe it's 8521, about all the work that the county is putting in on school APF and all the work that we are really trying to do to finally put an end to a generation of layered bad policy choices that Mr. Kai Ziegler from OPZ is leading a fantastic work group that is going deep every meeting and going deeper on the data and what drives it. The proposal, I guess I wouldn't say it's a proposal, the concept idea, Madam Chair, and I'm sure you've been running a meeting, you haven't had a chance to review it, but I would like to talk about it briefly, is an approach that would allow testing to occur earlier. So currently, if a development is in an area where there isn't school capacity, it never comes to a test. So we never know whether a development will or will not add students. And I think the data shows the types of construction included in this bill don't generally add students to schools. So we should be able to test it. And if it passes, you would be able to build. I don't know if that approach is going to work for this bill, or if it's a separate bill, or if it's something the work group needs to really look at. That's a long way of the administration saying, we share the sponsor's intent, but we really do want to make sure we get the details right on this. So we're open to keep talking on this to try to get what we have said in 8521 done right, which is we need to tackle our school capacity issues in this county. We need to make sure that every student goes to a school with adequate capacity, and we need to make the investments in our school capital. And that's the work the Pittman administration is committed to doing, and that's what we're doing. This bill is, I think, as the sponsor identified, pretty narrow around 3 small areas of the county and a very specific type of housing unit that does not generate students. So with that, hope any of the experts can correct me if I said anything incorrect, and we're happy to answer any questions or continue the conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. I'm most interested in hearing what the administration thinks of being able to move from our planning in the GDP to implementation by having identified these 3 specific areas in the county that have critical economic development and transit-oriented overlay on top of them. Because to me, that's actually the most important part of the bill. I did read the email that you sent, and I don't think it addresses the most important part of the bill, which to me is trying to actually implement what we said we wanted to do in our GDP and put residential where we said residential can go. The bill was also supported by a letter we received from the school system that acknowledged that for planning purposes, units that have 1 bedroom are considered to have 0 impact on student generation. And so while the issue, a piece of the issue is certainly our approach with the adequate school facilities test and whether or not you can enter it, totally apart from whether you can enter the test is the issue of whether the test is needed at all. And this bill takes a totally different approach from what you just emailed me this morning. With respect, I wish you had sent that to everyone before, 10 minutes or a half an hour into our meeting this morning so we could have a more productive and accurate discussion. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, I think we can move on to bill number 9421. Ms. Pickard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 9421 is amends the Glen Burnie Sustainable Community Overlay, Bill 6420, to address some of the things we heard about today in our MDOT discussion with TOD of the Cromwell transit-oriented development surrounding Cromwell. While this bill tackles the school APFO question, it is a little different from the bill we just discussed in that this is a redevelopment. So I think Ms. Corby sent everybody a map with the overlapping areas of where the Glen Burnie Sustainable Community overlaps with the Cromwell transit-oriented development policy area. If you haven't seen it, I guess, Ms. Corby, could you pull it up? That might be helpful as we talk a little bit about the area. It's a small area. So the surrounding purple that you see is the Glen Burnie Sustainable Community, and then the highlighted lavender area is where it overlaps with TOD. So in there you can see, yeah, we've got the Cromwell Light Rail Station, we've got Monsignor Slade Parochial School, we've got other development there. But if as we talked about today, we get lucky in Anne Arundel County and opportunity meets preparation, our county code will acknowledge what it takes by addressing the redevelopment needs. We know that good redevelopment and in inviting and incentivizing investment of such redevelopment requires a residential component. So like we did in the very specific town center area that was targeted towards one specific block that is not currently, which is underutilized, I would say. We wanted to look at adding the same conditions like we have in the Parole Town Center, just exempting school APFO from, if you fall into the specific area, if it's mixed use, and no less than 50% of the dwelling units or efficiencies are 1 bedrooms and no more than 2 bedrooms are in the mix. So this is just, you know, as we talk about, we're in discussions with the state regarding Cromwell currently, and it is hopefully on the path to receiving state designation as a state TOD. So this is just another carrot to incentivize the private sector to uplift and revitalize the downtown Glen Burnie area. We tackled the school APFO concerns. Sure, I understand. I'm very much understand the questions and conversations we've had recently with the work we're doing in the work group. This, I feel, is just a little tweak to the overlay bill. And to be honest, it might not produce any redevelopment. And based on just general economics and market conditions, but we know without the ability to get through that APFO test, we won't see at all. We won't see anything. So that I feel pretty certain about. So if you have any questions, I hope I've explained it well. I've had too much coffee sitting here since 9 o'clock, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Barron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pete Barron. Make sure I've got the right one up. Same team is sticking with me, Mr. Kai Ziegler, Ms. Miller, Mr. Badami, and Ms. Kenny. This bill comes out of some discussions from previous bill last year, some county-owned assets, and a lot of hard work to try to get this right. The sponsor noted we're tweaking the existing Glen Burnie Sustainable Community Overlay. We're comfortable with the language in this bill. It really is, I think you see from the map, a very small part of the Glen Burnie area, and what this could do for that downtown corridor is pretty amazing if a lot of other things line up. So I want to commend the sponsor for working with us. It's been, I know it's been a passion project from Councilwoman Pickard to, I think from the first months in office, she dragged, I shouldn't say dragged, she invited the entire administration, economic development, OPZ, the county executive, to do a walking tour of the area to really see what this could become. And we're not there yet, and this is a small piece of that pie.
Ms. Pickard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to add a little bit. Yes, this has definitely been a passion project, and I'm thrilled with the engagement that's been happening with the Glen Burnie Revitalization Implementation Task Force. all along the way, not just with the sustainable community overlay, but with our targeted market study that the administration has partnered on. We're coming to a close on that study, and the engagement with local business owners and the Glen Burnie Improvement Association and constituents has been really exciting and has opened their eyes to the possibilities for really positive change. We have seen, I just want to give everybody a little update. We have seen 2 or 3 projects come through the overlay process. And one of the things that has been really rewarding to watch is the concept plan and the early engagement with the community on those projects before they get to full engineering, and how that taking those investors have really taken to heart at that first early community engagement meeting, which would also play a role in continuing through the projects that come through. So I'm really obviously yes, passionate about this project, but I do want to emphasize that the community has been involved all along the way, and they're excited to see positive change. We have not seen a project come through yet that brings in any new mixed use or residential. We have seen some exciting projects. If you drive up and down Crane Highway as often as I do, you may notice the Moose Lodge property is being transformed as we speak into a commercial recreation facility. It is beautiful. It's right across the street from the North Arundel Aquatic Center, and the parking lot improvements and the turf fields are going in now. The building itself has been renovated, and the youth and others are using that indoor facility currently, and will hopefully be, all fingers crossed, those turf fields go in on time, be up and running with active commercial rec. So there's been some good movement, but we're still looking to tweak the provisions in the overlay like this bill would do to continue to incentivize the redevelopment of downtown Glen Burnie. So happy to answer any questions offline or later if you want to talk further about it, but just thanks for the support.
Does anyone have any comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none, I think we can move on to bill number 9621. Thank you, everyone. 9621 is an administration bill. Go ahead, Mr. Barron.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Pete Barron with the administration. Joining me is Ms. Molden from Budget, Ms. Blair Klausmeyer from the Office of Law. Bill 9621 deals with Cedarhurst on the Bay Shore Erosion Control District. This bill would place a multi-year obligation for the Cedarhurst SECD on public record. The loan is for the refinance of a loan approved in Bill 9017 that is used for the maintenance of a shore erosion bulkhead and dredging project. The current loan would provide the community with a lower interest rate over this remaining term. Happy to answer any questions. This bill is not up until the December 6th meeting, I believe, and at that time we'll be asking you to approve.
Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Thank you very much. Let's roll on to 9721. Mr. Barron.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Again, Pete Barron. Joining me is Ms. Badowski from Personnel and Ms. Blair Klausmeyer from the Office of Law. Bill 9721 is to amend the Personnel Code to permit the use of annual leave accrued as of the end of the pay period for calendar year 2021. During the first pay period of the period calendar year 22, so this is December 23rd, 2021 to December 5th, 2022, If you recall, during the COVID emergency, the county executive was able to do this by executive order. What we have had over the last year as the COVID pandemic has dragged on, we have had our folks in county government do a tremendous amount of hard work. This is a small bill that will give a little extra flexibility to use their accrued leave. So this is leave they've earned and would allow them to use it. Ms. Badowski's here for any of the hard questions. Hopefully we will pass this bill at the appropriate time.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you. Bill number 9821, Mr. Barron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pete Barron with the administration. We have Ms. Asha Smith, our Human Relations and Equal Opportunity Coordinator, joining me, and Ms. Lori Blair-Klassmeyer from the Office of Law sticking around. 9821 is a pretty cool bill. It will give the student member of the HRC voting rights. As this council will recall, when we created the Human Relations Commission, we invested with it a number of powers. We weren't, it was the first time the county had done something like that, and we had wanted to take it a little slow. And as it's been doing its work, we've seen some tremendous work product come out of it, and the participation from our young folks has been awesome. The commission actually sent a letter, I believe, Ms. Smith, to the county executive requesting that the student member be given voting rights and be allowed to participate. As we were drafting the bill, another issue that the commission had identified is finding more people with real world housing expertise. So as we looked at how to create this bill, we realized that when you add, I think it was actually Ms. Lori Blair-Klassmeyer that realized that when you add the student member, we go to an even number of commissioners, which would effectively open up the possibility for a tie. So we're attempting to kill two birds with one stone and bring in some additional expertise from our Anne Arundel Community Development Services, the executive director who has who has housing expertise. The administration is considering crafting an amendment, as you all know, and hopefully you have been invited to an event. We are losing Miss Kathy Koch to a very well-deserved retirement. And as that happens, it may make sense for us, while a new executive director is coming in, to allow a ACADS designee to take that spot. So the administration, at the appropriate time, probably after we get through the next meeting, because this bill will be up on the 6th, is looking at an amendment to add 2 words or designate to the ACDS appointment. I hope I got that all, and happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Ms. Fidler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amanda Fidler, District 5. So, Mr. Barron, when I think of a student member who serves on a board, I obviously think of the school board. And I know the requirement for that position is that the board member be a senior. I don't see, at least I think that's the requirement. I don't see any identifying age or restrictions in that area. Could you help me out here with?
I'll defer to Ms. Smith if I'm incorrect, but we were not intending to require a student member be a senior. Generally speaking, they're closing in on college when they get appointed, but we have not had a discussion and weren't intending to limit it to just seniors or just juniors and seniors.
Madam Chair, may I ask a follow-up?
You may, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Barron, Amanda Fidler, District 5. Do you have an idea of, I mean, will there be no cutoff? Will you be accepting middle school? I'm just wondering if there are grade parameters, age parameters that you discussed or are considering.
Ms. Smith has been involved in the discussions with the commission. So if you want to tackle that, I can't imagine we would be appointing a middle schooler.
No, I'm Asha Smith, speaking for the administration, and the law actually states that the student member has to be in good standing in an Anne Arundel County public high school. And so that would disqualify students who are not yet in high school. And while that's not age related, typically high schoolers fall within a certain age range.
Ms. Fidler, do you still have questions?
I have one more question. And thank you, Ms. Smith, and thank you, Madam Chair, Amanda Fidler, District 5. Mr. Barron, it's been some time since that legislation passed that you mentioned, which gave increased parameters or increased abilities for the commission. Could you just quickly touch on some of those additions and capabilities to the commission that bill granted?
So specifically, the council, again, bill numbers are never great in my brain, but I think it was like 5419, or it was in the middle of 2019, and I believe the bill was in the 50s. I'm sure Madam Administrator remembers the number off the top of her head. That bill granted specific powers as it relates to the enforcement of fair housing.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, thank you all. The next bill would have been Bill 9921, but Mr. Volke has had to leave the meeting for the day, so we're going to skip it. And then the last item on our agenda is resolution number 5821. Mr. Barron.
Sorry, Madam Chair. What is 58? Sorry, I don't have that in front of me. 1 second, please. What I get for closing my windows. So, oops, wait, hold on, I pushed the wrong button. Did I do that? Oh, there you are. Bill 58, or sorry, Resolution 5821 is the resolution supporting the Anne Arundel County Board's request for the capital improvement program. This is the letter we submit to the IAC. It is done on behalf of the school board, and fortunately, we have our resident expert, Mr. Shaknovich, who stuck around all meeting to answer any questions on the specifics of this resolution. And we have Ms. Lori Blair Klausmeyer from the Office of Law.
Does anyone have any comments or questions? Seeing none. Okay. Then that is it for today's work session. Thank you to everyone for making the time to be here today, and we will see you all again at 7 p.m. on November 15th, 2021, live in the council chambers. Have a great day.